We're a minute past here, so we'll go ahead and get started. Really appreciate the strong turnout as we launch this project here. Um, this is as we've grown the EMS Coalition membership, and you all have invested in us. We've been looking for additional ways that we can add value to the membership in addition to everything that we do, working on reimbursement issues, working on things at the Capitol. And one of the things that we've gotten into recently is, and not just recently, but over the years, is what's the cost of delivering EMS in West Virginia? And we've, over the last year plus, we've looked at a lot of data coming out of the CMS cost reporting that everyone should be submitting, and got some numbers and started to have conversations with legislators, with insurance companies, county commissioners about what does EMS truly cost to deliver in West Virginia. And always having that moving target and moving ball, we started to get the response back, yeah, but those are national numbers. Those aren't West Virginia. And even though each of us know that data is pretty accurate on the national level across all categories, rural, urban, different states, different types of operators, we wanted to, as a coalition board and leadership group, say, okay, let's get down to those West Virginia numbers and take that issue off the table. So PWW has been kind enough to work with us. They've done a lot of this, not only on the national level, but also looking at some other states and helping us. And so they stepped forward and said, we'll help you all put this data together. So we've made a little investment with them, but they've been very, very generous with their time. And what we're going to do today is introduce Matt here and let him kind of roll out the project, let you know how we're going to collect this data, because we do need some support from each of you to make this an effective project. And tell you how we're going to go about collecting that data, what you need to submit, provide an opportunity for you guys to answer any questions. And, really, I think one of the important things is highlighting how we're going to submit the data. He'll talk about this as well, but, I know that we always have some folks that are hesitant about, hey, I don't want other agencies seeing my data. I don't want to see the coalition having my data, because then maybe some of the board members will see it. You're going to be able to submit this information directly to PWW so that'll be protected, and you won't have to share that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt and let him kind of roll out what we're doing here.
Thanks, Chris. And kudos to you all for truly taking the lead in helping your providers in your state quantify not only the cost of providing service, but what is your economic model, certainly in terms of the reimbursement. So Chris is spot on, and think about it. Not only did the GADS report give us some information, but for those of you that are watching and paying attention, MedPAC, which is the organization that's going to potentially make some recommendations to CMS about changing the fee schedule, one of their comments is that they are going to eliminate any cost reports where the provider's cost of providing service was twice the standard deviation above the mean, or 3 times the standard deviation above the mean, which many of us said, well, that's not really a good thing to kick out, because those are the rural providers. And you can't kick their information out from the analysis because they're the highest cost. We really need to pay attention to that. So kudos to you guys for doing this at the state level, and certainly we'll have some national impacts as well. Had the pleasure of working with many of you. I saw a lot of familiar names that were coming up on the screen. So nice to see those folks engaged in this process, or certainly attending the meeting this morning. So first, we're going to gather this information to aggregately, talk more about that in a minute, identify the cost of service delivery, the revenue that you're receiving from the service delivery, and to keep it relatively simple from a data collection perspective. If you have already submitted the CMS Ground Ambulance Data Collection Survey Report, you're 3/4 of the way there, if not more. You can literally just take your copy, and hopefully everybody kept a copy of your report, and it looks very much like the one that you see here on the right from Clinton Area Ambulance Authority. We actually did a project there as well. And you'll be able to submit that to us. And the majority of the information that is in that report is the information that we're going to need to help the coalition build the case, do this analysis, and then eventually have some good talking points, message points for payment reform in West Virginia, and some other things that you guys are already working on. If you don't have a copy of your ground ambulance data collection system report, or if you didn't do one for whatever reason, no judgment, just there are a lot of people that didn't, that's fine. We've also created a very easy to use data collection workbook. It's an Excel file. I'm going to walk you through it very, very quickly. It's actually very easy to do. But as you look at this particular screenshot, you'll note that the instructions in this workbook is that any cell that you see in green means you can enter information into there. Cells that are not green are protected, which is great because now you just have to do data entry and it makes it much simpler as you go through that process. So if you're going to use the workbook to collect this information for Chris and the coalition, that we will analyze, and we'll talk about that in a minute. In the instructions page, right at the beginning, just put in your agency name, and that will carry through the rest of the worksheets. And again, that's the only cell on this particular sheet that you can fill in. So it makes it very easy. Next is we're going to want some basic demographics about your agency. You'll still notice there at the top where it says agency that autofills from the earlier worksheet. So as we look at these individuals, we'll know who that was. We're going to ask for things like resident population, service area, square miles. That gives us a population density that we can use as part of the aggregate analysis. Scheduled or produced ambulance unit hours, just a quick mention of that. For those of you that might not be familiar with that, we use unit hour scheduled and produced to develop a cost per hour to have a unit on duty. In your system in West Virginia, we would aggregate that information because a lot of people are very surprised that the ambulance sitting in that garage waiting for a call actually costs money. Even if it's staffed primarily by volunteers, it still has a cost. So in order to determine what that is, we'd like to know your scheduled unit hours and your produced unit hours. And Monica, I'm sure, is smiling about this because she did a great job at this when we were working with her system. So let's assume for a minute that you have one ambulance on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's your schedule. That means that one ambulance on duty 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. If you multiply 1 times 24 times 365, that number is 8760. That means that there are going to be 8,760 scheduled unit hours. Easy number. If you have 2 ambulances, 3 ambulances, just do the math. If you have peak load staffing, if you flexibly deploy, that's fine. Just look at your schedule, count up the hours for each week, each month, whatever it is, and just fill that number in. How many do you schedule? Now, then the question becomes, how many are you actually able to produce? Some systems are very blessed, and they always produce the exact number of unit hours that they plan on scheduling. But let's say that you have that one unit 24/7 for 8760 unit hours. Somebody calls in sick one day, and that unit's down, and you don't replace it. You don't have a backfill, so you just lost 24 hours. Or the ambulance breaks down, and they can't operate. So you're going to have maybe another 12 hours that are deducted from that. If your system is pretty reliable and you've got a small system and you're always staffing what you schedule, that's great. Those numbers are going to be pretty close to the same. If you're running a dynamically deployed system where you have 12 units on at noon, 6 units on at 6 p.m., 4 units on at midnight, it's going to take a little bit of math, but it would be really good to know what those scheduled and produced unit hours are going to be. If you're a volunteer agency and you don't have people on duty, but you have people on call, and you have 2 people on call every day, all year long, that's great. Then that's, again, 8,760 unit hours that you are producing and scheduled, regardless of what type of staffing you have, whether it's volunteer paid, there you go. Number of responses, pretty self-explanatory. Number of patient contacts and number of transports. We consider patient contacts and transports separately, especially in states like yours that are being very innovative and doing ambitious treat and refer programs, treatment in place, if you will. So when you arrive on the scene of a call and have a patient contact and you're there for 45 minutes, 60 minutes, but you don't transport, that's still time that you're with that patient. So we want to know for this reporting process, how many calls did you go on? How many patients did you encounter? And of that, how many did you transport? Those are three very distinct data elements that will help us make the case for you guys regarding your economics of service delivery. Then we're going to ask some cost information. How many full-time equivalents do you have? For those who are not familiar with full-time equivalents, if you have two people that work for you full-time and they work 40 hours a week, each one of them is one FTE, right? They work, 20, 80 hours a year, or if they're on a rotating schedule, they might work, more hours than that. But how many full-time equivalents do you have working for you? And we only want to count full-timers. So if your system operates on 16 FTEs, but you have 16 full-time employees, but you have 6 that work part-time, and they work when one of the full-time people are off. They take vacation, they call in sick, they go on FMLA, whatever it is. We don't want to count the part-time employees because the part-time employees' hours and cost are there to fill the vacancy created by the missing full-time equivalent. So again, if you have 16 full-time employees and 6 part-time, just report the 16. Then we want to know what is the average cost per FTE, all in, wages, benefits, uniforms, you see the list there. If you're contributing to a 401k or if they're in a pension, please include those costs because again, we're trying to capture all costs relative to service delivery. Then capital equipment. How much does it cost you for an ambulance? How much does it cost you for the equipment in the ambulance? We want to report those separately because not everybody has power cots or power loads or those high capital dollar equipment, but just enter that information in per ambulance. So if you're running a Braun on an international chassis, that number might be $500,000. If you're running a Ford Transit, that's fine. That number might be $75,000. Okay, whatever it is. And then whatever capital equipment that you have that go in as part of the ambulance, what in your system do you consider to be the useful life of your ambulance? Generally, it's 5 to 7 years, but it depends on things like mileage. If you're in a very high volume system, your useful life of an ambulance might be 3 years because you're going to clock 250,000 miles in 3 years. If you're in a very rural community, and you're clocking 1,000 or 2,000 miles a year, that ambulance may last longer. So tell us what your replacement schedule is for those ambulances. Then how many of those do you have? And this is total, not on duty. So most agencies will try and keep maybe a 25, 30% reserve. So if you're running 4 ambulances, you might have 1 or 2 in backup. We want the number of all the ambulances because they all have depreciation expense, they all have equipment, they all have maintenance issues, etc. Then moving down to operations expenses, ambulance maintenance, fuel, supplies, IT expense, billing fees. If you do outsource billing, then what is the money that you pay to the billing agency each year to do your billing? If you have in-house staff, what is the cost of those staff members that are doing your billing? Then the indirect expenses, chiefs, deputy chiefs, directors, assistant directors, HR people, the front door receptionist, whatever it is. How many of those do you have? What percentage of their time is committed to ground ambulance service? You might hear that term from your ground ambulance data collection survey report. Generally, if you're an ambulance only organization, it's 100%. If you're a fire-based provider or a hospital-based provider that's reporting it separately from being an individual provider, that number might be different. But I think for most of you, it'll be 100%, and that's fine. Dispatch expense. So do you do your own dispatching? How many people do you have? What's their budget? Do you pay another agency, the sheriff's office or a police department or a joint communication center? Do you pay a fee for that or not? Is there some kind of an assessment? But what are those costs related to dispatching ambulances to addresses? And then obviously your facilities costs, utilities, maintenance, supplies, the things that are all related to the facility expense. On the next page, we're going to ask about where you see current fee schedule is what is your current fee schedule for each of these services? Now, if you don't have some of these services that you bill for, that's fine. Just leave it blank. If there are things that you do that aren't listed on here, that's why we have the other box. You can just type in there what the other thing is, vaccine administration, whatever it is unique to your system. Just put that in. How much do you charge for that? Then we get into a little bit of the service mix. how many responses, how many patient encounters. Should be the same as in your basic general information. How many of your transports were provided at the ALS clinical care level? How many were at the BLS level? How many did you have that were treatment in place? If you did a field termination of resuscitation or pronounced someone dead on scene, how often did that happen? If you do transport helicopter crews, fixed wing crews, organ transplant teams, you can put that in there if you'd like. And then non-emergency transports. How many were ALS? How many were BLS? How many were specialty care? I know that there's some people who use specialty care and ALS2 interchangeably. That's fine. You can put ALS2, SCT together and just put in how many specialty care transports we did X. And again, that will help us with the overall collection process. Then either from your billing people or from your billing agency, if you have one that's an outside billing agency, they should be able to give you this information pretty easily. So for your last complete year, whether that's a fiscal year, calendar year, enter the year. So let's say it's 2024, that's fine. Or it might be fiscal year 24, 25 because your fiscal year ended September 30, or in some cases, June 30th, whatever it is, just that most recent 12-year period. How many ALS emergency calls did you bill? How many ALS non-emergency, BLS non-emergency, all those things. And that's where we're looking for the actual quantity of those services. If there are other things like in the previous tab, write those in and put in how many of those you had. And then we can do some analysis based on frequency and service level mix. Then for the similar categories, how much did you bill? So we know you billed 100 ALS emergency calls and your ALS emergency fee is $1,000. So your ALS emergency gross billing is $100,000. Okay, what was it for ALS non-emergency, BLS emergency, BLS non-emergency? How much did you bill in total, not per case, in total for those services during that same year? Then how much revenue was generated? How many of the ALS emergency calls, what was the fee? So you billed 100,000, you received 50,000, okay? For ALS non-emergency, you billed 50,000, you received 20,000, okay? Just put in, again, the same time frame, the year, the amounts that were received, and that helps us show, hey, they may bill $1,000, but they ain't collecting $1,000. So don't think when you see on the news that, Mr. Jones got a $1,100 ambulance bill, that does not mean that the ambulance provider collected $1,100 from Mr. Jones. We want to help you tell that story. And then a similar analysis for the payer mix classification. So again, enter the year that you see up here, then how many calls were billed to Medicare, how many were billed to Medicare Advantage, how many were billed to Managed Medicaid. And again, this is showing two columns here, how many services were billed to that payer and what was the total amount billed. Because that way we can, again, show what the reductions are based on payer mix, et cetera. And then finally, how much did you receive from each of those payers? So we can show the billed payer mix, but then also the payer mix in terms of dollars received, because that can, again, make a very good talking point when you're talking with state and local officials. All of this data will be kept confidential. The data is going to me, not to Chris or to the board. We will keep your information confidential. So we will not release agency-specific information. We've done this for other states, and we committed to the same thing. However, if you want your analysis, just let us know, and we're happy to do that for you. We'll take your data report, we'll provide you with your analysis, and if you want us to go an additional step that says, hey, if we do a fee schedule increase, if we have an 11% reduction in our Medicaid payer mix because of OB3, what does that mean to us? We're happy to do that for you. And it'll be easy because we already have the information. And we're happy to provide that to you as a thank you for participating in this data collection process. There's two ways that you can get this information to us. If you are concerned about your information going into the Ethernet, then you can use the link that you'll see here when you get the handout. You can click on it, it's a live link. and it walks you through how to set up a quick account with PWW so that you can upload into a secure file transfer site, STPS, secure file site. You can upload the worksheet or your GADS report, whatever you want. And again, fully encrypted, very protected. I'm the only one that sees it. It'll be easy to access. This kind of walks you through how to do it. So when you get the handout, you'll see how to do it. It's really not very difficult at all. The other thing is none of this information that's either in your GADS report or in the workbook that we're providing is protected health information. So if it's just easier for you to email it, just email it. But again, if you don't want to because you want it, or your attorney or whoever says, hey, this has to be encrypted, it can't go through the regular channels, whatever, that's fine. Use the secure upload. Or what we found in most states that we've done this, it's just easier to email it. So here it is, thanks, attached file, and there you go. And again, because there's no PHI, no issues with doing that. Should be pretty easy. And Chris, with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions that the attendees may have.
So I know this looks like a lot, but I think they've tried to make it as simple as possible. And again, if you can upload your report that you've already completed, that makes it a lot easier. But we really encourage everyone to participate in this project. I know it'll take a little bit of time, but not really that much in the scheme of things. And really, when you're talking about the value of the information that we're going to get back both statewide, but what Matt's been kind enough to offer you up on an individual basis, you're not going to be able to get this kind of information put together on your own and be able to use it in such a way to educate folks, both locally when you're starting to talk to your county commissions about the cost of EMS and being able to compare that statewide or even nationally, but also as we work with legislators, insurance companies, et cetera, trying to reform reimbursement across the state, but also looking as we advocate for state funding, which has been our big push as well, to kind of supplement that cost of readiness, as we always discuss. I think this is a really important project, and I'm really excited that we've been able to take this on. So are there any questions for Matt at this stage about submitting information, processes, anything like that?
Hey, Chris, this is Ray, Mount Logan. Do we have a target date to have all this done?
Yeah.
Submitted?
Yep.
Matt
Friday.
Says,
Last Friday,
like
Chris,
a lot Go ahead.
We know that it's going to take a minute, but we also know that if we tell you we need it by the end of next year, you'll do it 13 months from now, right? So let's be honest. So I think we'd like to do it within 30 to 45 days while it's fresh in everybody's mind, because we'd like to have this project done and back to Chris as a summary before the first of the year.
So that's what I was going to ask. So if we can get the whole time frame, like, I guess you're going to need all the data before you input any of it, or will you be inputting it as it goes? How long after the final one is sent in would it take to get the report back?
A couple of weeks, like literally 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's not easy to do the aggregation. We would recommend that you not send a little bit of information at a time.
Right. No. I just meant squad information.
Okay.
Where we get 20 of them. Now, Chris, what about legislative, or Trish? What about our legislative deadlines of trying to get this data? Will it help any with interims in December if we could push for that? Like, give us a deadline. I think it's the best way for us to work on this.
Paul, absolutely, and that's where I was getting ready to go with this conversation. We're sitting here, it's October 17th. So what I would like to ask people, if at all possible, please, and we're going to be pestering people and doing follow-up and saying, can you get this in? But if we can shoot for 2 weeks, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah,
so if we can shoot for October 31st, let's make it Halloween, 2 weeks from today. And the reason why I'm asking that is, again, back to the point you raised about interims and such. The November interims are going to be at Pipestem, so they're out of Charleston. But I think that we have, as we've talked about, there's an excellent opportunity for us to potentially either be before the legislature in December or January, or potentially even host an event with the Fire and EMS Committee at Kanawha County as we've extended that invitation. We don't have that confirmed yet, but if in case that would happen,
Right.
I would like to be able to have this information back prior to those presentations, that first week in December. So here in Matt's time frame is if we can try everybody have those in October 31st, in 2 weeks, he should be able to meet that. That gives a full month for them to pull everything together. So I think that that's probably reasonable with what he said and would be really beneficial to us. Absolutely, we want to have it, everything at the latest, our final product no later than the first of the year. But it'd be really helpful to be able to have that the 1st of December. So I'm gonna ask everybody to please try to get this in by October 31st.
And then one more question for Matt. The individual analysis that you mentioned, will there be an additional fee from that agency to pay to get that information?
There would not, but I ask that you not say that widely.
Okay.
So,
Right.
so
All right.
it's a value add that we'll do for you guys for participating. But we don't want people calling from Montana saying, "Hey, you offered Brian this deal." It's like, okay.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. I think that'd be awesome information for these other squads around us.
Yeah, it's a real value added. And I think we might have to talk offline, but ours is gonna whatever. We're complicated on everything, Jink here. But anyway, I think it's like we had to do it 3 different years, even though we're the same, it's fine. We'll get it to you.
I think the key factor is that most everyone has already done this, so it really should be a simple task.
And I didn't want to ask, I don't want to in an open forum, but I'm just trying to figure out how many may have to fill it out now versus how many it would be. Now, and literally, do you get it as a PDF? I mean, so your data entry and data.
And that's okay, because when people submitted their report, they could only save it as a PDF.
Right.
Okay, we'll work with what we got.
We were thinking about that. It's kind of frustrating, but
okay.
Matt, just for clarity, if they do upload their existing report, do they need to fill out that form? How much of that form do they need to complete? I want to make sure that everybody's clear on that.
I will likely reply to them once they submit it and ask them some of the basic demographics. Population served, because call volume data is there, payer mix volume is already in there, but what's not in there is population served at the granular level, if you will, and some of the service mix. But again, 90% of the information is contained in the GADS report, and I'll just send them some additional information requests if we need it.
Chris, I'll just take a moment to say, and I've been very vocal to say we've worked with PWW over the last year and a half on our assessment here at KCA, and I think them adding the additional layer to the agencies would have an opportunity to look at what their data is nailed down just to that particular agency. It will be a wealth of information to you, and it will be able to use for your stakeholders at your individual agencies, which is paramount and key with the things that we've walked through here at KCA. And I think this is a huge step forward for the state of West Virginia. So thank you, Chris, for pulling all this together. Thanks, Matt, for hopping on.
So I just see a question in chat I don't think we've addressed. How long is the turnaround time after you receive our workbook to return analysis to squad? Are we going to wait till after the full analysis is done, and then so the sooner we can get that done, then the sooner we can get those individual reports back.
Aligning incentives, Chris. That's very good of you.
There's a question here from Brandon.
Hey, Chris, Matt. Hey, just appreciate this. As we're submitting previous year cost data, as we've crossed over into the new fiscal year, we've had some significant changes, in our costs. Will there be an adjustment for the inflation? We just don't want to, falsely deflate, our costs. So, I don't know if we can annualize, Q1's worth of information to get a little bit more accurate. Just what are your thoughts on that?
If you want to identify your fiscal year as, ending September 30th because the last quarter you had a significant increase. I don't really care when your official fiscal year ends, but if you want to say, hey, this is 12 months of data from September back, that's fine. Just know that when we normalize the data out over 12 months, your quarterly, monthly increase might not seem as dramatic unless you want to say when you send it, hey, we sent you September individually, we sent you August individually, because we want you to notice these big changes. We're trying to use as clean data as we can. For example, the actual expenditures, instead of trying to project what expenditures might be a year from now. So we got to walk that line very carefully.
And I guess we're just thinking about, we replaced a whole lot of power loads recently, but our data was probably submitted, I don't want to go in, it's been years, right? It's been 2 years ago, 3 years. I don't know. I think we did it like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and last year.
We're a year into submitting ours, so we're a year out from our GADS report.
Yeah, and many people reported theirs at different times. So
right.
And I guess you can upload your report, and that's the simplest way. But if you want to capture more of that and get it more current, you can do the worksheet too. That's another alternative as well.
Yeah.
We're trying to make it as easy as possible, but if you want to do more current data and just do the worksheet, then you could do that as well.
Especially knowing if you're going to want an individual agency analysis, I would almost encourage you to fill out the workbook instead of sending the GADS report. And it may look familiar, Monica, to you. I've got your data. You're good.
If you've got the time, I would highly suggest, if you're wanting a more accurate look at where you are most current, whatever you do that on the fiscal or calendar, I would highly suggest that you do the workbook.
And then when we do it, say that 50% of the agencies just use their data from 2 or 3 years ago or whenever it was submitted, and then some are doing it current, I guess that just gets blended into the aggregate of what it is. So the report, what is the report title going to be? Is it West Virginia cost analysis? Does it have you think it'll have a range in it, or we're just going to come up with a final number?
I'd say we'll probably have a final number, and we'll say based on data collected by the EMS Coalition in consultation with PWW in
CMS,
whatever, in 2025 or whatever we're going to say. Yeah,
fiscal snapshot, you can make it current, 2025 fiscal snapshot, and you've got costs, revenues, you name it.
Any other questions? So we'll be circulating out the materials after this, and if you have any other follow-up questions, Matt's contact information will be there. You can shoot him a note or whatever, and he's very, very responsive. So I'm sure he'll get back to you as quickly as he can if he's not out busy teaching a class or something like that, as he's known to do. But we appreciate everybody joining us here on a Friday afternoon. Encourage you to please start to work on uploading that information. Again, we won't be seeing any of the details, but we will be asking Matt maybe for a list of those agencies that have submitted data so that we can pester those that don't a little bit. So, for those of you that are routinely harassed by Trish, I would encourage you to just be proactive and go ahead and get yours in before you start to hear from her.
That's it, Chris.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. We appreciate you.
Thanks, everyone. See you later. Bye.